My son, David, thought he was so clever when he stole my late wife, Margaret's jewelry and forged documents to access my retirement accounts. But in 72 hours, he discovered that betraying the man who taught him everything about business was the worst mistake of his life. Before we continue, please subscribe to hear more stories about family justice and second chances. I never thought I'd be telling this story. At 68 years old, after building a successful construction company from nothing and raising 3 children with my beloved Margaret, I believed my golden years would be peaceful. Margaret and I had worked our entire lives, saving every penny, making smart investments, all so we could leave something meaningful for our children and grandchildren. But Margaret's death 14 months ago changed everything, not just for me, though losing my wife of 42 years left a hole in my chest that still aches every morning, but for my middle child, David. Something shifted in him after the funeral. The son who used to call every Sunday, who brought his kids over for barbecues, who worked alongside me at Henderson Construction for 15 years. That son disappeared, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. It started small, little comments about the house being too big for just one person. Questions about my investments that seemed more pointed than caring. His wife Jennifer began dropping hints about their financial struggles, despite David making a 6-figure salary as my operations manager. I dismissed it all as grief manifesting differently. We all missed Margaret. The morning of October 12th began like every other since Margaret passed. I woke at 5:47 a.m., made my single cup of coffee in the machine she'd bought me for our last anniversary, and sat in my kitchen watching the sun rise over our backyard. The maple tree we'd planted when David was born had turned brilliant orange. Margaret would have loved it. At 7:30 a.m. sharp, I headed to my home office to review some contracts. That's when I noticed it. The small fireproof safe where I kept Margaret's jewelry, her engagement ring, the pearl necklace I'd given her for our 25th anniversary, her mother's antique brooch. The door was slightly ajar. My hands trembled as I opened it fully. Empty. Every piece gone. I stood there, staring at that empty metal box, trying to process what I was seeing. We lived in a gated community. Our security system was state-of-the-art. Only 3 people knew the combination to that safe: Margaret, myself, and David, who I'd trusted with it years ago in case something happened to both of us. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. My own son had stolen from me, from his mother's memory. I sank into my desk chair, the coffee mug shaking in my hand. But as the initial shock wore off, something else took its place. Not anger, not yet. First came a cold, methodical need to understand the full scope of what was happening. I opened my laptop and logged into my investment accounts, or tried to. Invalid password. My chest tightened. I tried my backup password. Nothing. With growing dread, I called Fidelity. After 40 minutes of security verifications, the representative delivered the news that turned my blood to ice. Mr. Henderson, according to our records, you authorized a transfer of $412,000 to an external account 3 days ago. I did no such thing. Sir, the transfer was authenticated using your security questions and came from your registered IP address. 3 days ago, when David and Jennifer had visited for dinner, when David had offered to help me organize Dad's computer files while I cooked, when he'd been alone in my office for nearly an hour. I thanked the representative, hung up, and made another call. Then another. By noon, I'd discovered $412,000 transferred from my Fidelity account, $275,000 withdrawn from my savings. Margaret's jewelry, worth approximately $80,000, gone. 2 fraudulent applications for home equity loans in progress. Total theft, $767,000, plus the priceless sentimental value of Margaret's jewelry. I sat back in my chair, staring at the financial devastation on my screen. My son, the boy I'd coached in Little League, who I'd taught to drive in the company truck, who stood beside me at Margaret's funeral, had systematically planned and executed the theft of nearly everything liquid I owned. The why became clear when I did some investigating. David's lifestyle had inflated dramatically over the past 2 years. The new BMW for Jennifer, the country club membership, the kids in private school, vacations to Europe, all while complaining about money whenever they visited. I picked up my coffee mug, now cold, and took a sip anyway. Margaret always said I did my best thinking with coffee in my hand. She was right, as usual. Most fathers would have called the police immediately, would have raged, confronted, demanded answers. But I wasn't most fathers. I'd built Henderson Construction from a single pickup truck and a toolbox into a company worth $8 million. You don't succeed in construction without learning patience, planning, and how to lay a foundation properly before you build. I spent the rest of that day documenting everything: screenshots, account statements, transfer records. I created a folder on my computer labeled Vacation Photos 2023 and encrypted it. Then I made coffee, strong and black, and began to plan. The next morning, October 13, I followed my normal routine. Coffee at 5:47 a.m., sunrise in the kitchen, but instead of heading to the office, I drove to Bradley Mitchell's law firm. Bradley had handled Henderson Construction's legal work for 20 years. More importantly, he'd been Margaret's cousin. "Tom, you look tired," Bradley said as I sat across from his mahogany desk. "I have a problem, Brad." I laid out the evidence methodically. His face grew darker with each document. "Your own son." He shook his head. "What do you want to do?" "I want justice. But more than that, I want to understand why he thought he could do this and get away with it." Bradley leaned back. "We can file charges. This is grand theft, fraud, elder abuse." "Not yet." I held up my hand. "First, I want to protect what's left. Then, I want to give David a chance to come clean. One chance." We spent 3 hours restructuring everything. The house went into an irrevocable trust. The company shares were reorganized. My remaining accounts were moved and secured. Bradley's colleague, Sarah Chen, a forensic accountant, began tracing the stolen funds. That evening, I called David. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" His voice was casual, normal, as if he hadn't just destroyed 40 years of trust. "I'd like you and Jennifer to come for dinner tomorrow. Just the 2 of you. Leave the kids with Jennifer's mother." "Sure, Dad. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I have some family business to discuss." I spent Saturday preparing. Not just dinner, Margaret's pot roast recipe, David's favorite, but everything else. The dining room table set with our good china, the security cameras checked and recording, the documents Bradley had prepared laid out in my office, the empty jewelry safe moved to the dining room sideboard, covered with a tablecloth. They arrived at 6 p.m. sharp. Jennifer was wearing a new designer dress. David had on a Rolex I'd never seen before. "Smells amazing, Dad," David said, hugging me. I wondered how he could embrace me so easily after what he'd done. We ate dinner with small talk. Jennifer dominated the conversation, going on about their upcoming ski trip to Aspen, the new car she had her eye on, how the children were excelling at their expensive private school. David mostly nodded along, occasionally glancing at me with something I couldn't quite read in his eyes. After dessert, Margaret's apple pie, I stood up. I have something to show you both. I walked to the sideboard and removed the tablecloth, revealing the empty safe. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Jennifer looked confused. David's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, then a careful blankness. "Dad?" "It's empty, David. You know that, of course, since you emptied it." Jennifer's head whipped toward her husband. "What is he talking about?" I returned to my seat, pulled out my phone, and set it on the table. "Sarah Chen traced the transfers. Would you like to know where the money went? $150,000 to pay off your gambling debts at the casino. $200,000 for a down payment on a beach house in Jennifer's name. The rest scattered across various purchases. Oh, and Margaret's jewelry, sold to 3 different dealers. We have the security footage." David's face had gone pale. Jennifer's mouth hung open. "Dad, I can explain." "Can you?" I leaned forward. "Can you explain why you stole from your mother's memory? Why you took money meant for your children's education? Why you betrayed 40 years of trust for a beach house and casino chips? You don't understand the pressure I've been under." David's carefully blank expression cracked. "Jennifer's family, they expect things. A certain lifestyle. You and Mom always lived so simply, I thought you'd never even notice." "You thought I wouldn't notice $750,000 missing." Jennifer found her voice. "David, what did you do?" "Oh, spare me, Jennifer." I turned to her. "The beach house is in your name. You've been driving the car bought with my wife's jewelry money. You knew." She flushed red but lifted her chin defiantly. "You have so much. That big house, the company, all those investments. Why shouldn't David get his share? He's worked for you for years." "His share?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "David makes $150,000 a year plus bonuses. I paid for his education, his wedding, gave you the down payment for your first house, but it wasn't enough, was it?" I stood and walked to the window, looking out at Margaret's maple tree. "You want to know the funny thing? If you'd asked, really asked, explained you were in trouble, I would have helped. That's what family does. Dad, I'm not finished." I turned back to them. "Here's what's going to happen. You have 2 choices. Option 1, you sign these documents acknowledging the debt. You'll pay back every penny with interest over the next 10 years. You'll resign from Henderson Construction immediately. You'll return anything purchased with stolen funds that can be returned. In exchange, I don't press criminal charges." I placed Bradley's documents on the table. "What's option 2?" David asked quietly. "I call the police right now. Grand theft, elder abuse, fraud. Bradley tells me you're looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. Your professional licenses will be revoked. Your children will grow up visiting their father in jail." Jennifer gasped. David's hands shook as he picked up the documents. This says I owe you $850,000. Interest and penalties. Bradley was very thorough. I can't pay this. Then I suggest you learn to live more simply. Sell the beach house. Return Jennifer's car. pull the kids from private school, get second jobs. I did it. Built everything from nothing while raising 3 kids. You can handle paying back what you stole." "You're really going to do this to your own son?" Jennifer's voice was shrill. "I'm not doing anything to him. He did this to himself, to us, to his mother's memory." I picked up the empty safe. This contained the ring I designed myself and saved for 2 years to buy for Margaret. The necklace I gave her when David was born. Her mother's brooch from 1920. You didn't just steal money. You stole memories, love, trust. David was crying now. "Dad, please, think of your grandchildren." "I am thinking of them. What lesson would they learn if I let their father get away with stealing? That family means nothing? That trust is worthless?" I shook my head. "They'll learn that actions have consequences. That integrity matters. Lessons you apparently forgot." I gave them 1 hour to decide. They spent it arguing in hushed voices in my living room while I sat in the kitchen with another cup of coffee, watching the sunset behind Margaret's tree. I thought about all the sunsets we'd watched together, all the dreams we'd shared about our golden years, our grandchildren, the legacy we'd leave. At exactly 1 hour, they returned to the kitchen. David's eyes were red. Jennifer looked like she'd aged 10 years. "We'll sign," David said quietly. I nodded and called Bradley, who arrived within 30 minutes with his assistant to notarize everything. As David signed his name with a shaking hand, I felt no satisfaction. Only a deep, aching sadness for the son I'd lost long before I discovered the theft. After all the papers were signed, they stood to leave. At the door, David turned back. "I know you'll never forgive me, but I am sorry, Dad. I got so lost in trying to be something I'm not, I forgot who I was." "I know you're sorry, David. Sorry you got caught." I paused. "But maybe someday you'll be sorry for the right reasons. When that day comes, we can talk about forgiveness." They left, and I stood in my doorway watching their taillights disappear. Then I went back inside, picked up my phone, and called my daughter Linda in Seattle. "Dad, it's late there. Is everything okay?" "Not really, sweetheart, but it will be. How would you and the kids like to visit for Thanksgiving? I have some changes to discuss about the company and estate planning." We talked for an hour. About David, about the future, about her potentially taking a larger role in Henderson construction. She'd always had the best business mind of my children, but I'd been too traditional to see it before. The next morning, October 16th, I woke at 5:47 a.m. and made my coffee. But this time, I made 2 cups. I carried them both out to the garden and set one on the bench where Margaret used to sit. "He's going to be okay, eventually," I told the empty space beside me. "It'll be hard, but maybe he'll find his way back to who we raised him to be." A cardinal landed on Margaret's maple tree and chirped. She always said cardinals were loved ones visiting. Maybe they were. Later that morning, Bradley called. "Tom, thought you should know. David's already listed the beach house, and Jennifer returned the car to the dealership. They're taking this seriously." "Good. Also, my investigator found something interesting. David's been in therapy for gambling addiction for 6 months. Jennifer didn't know. The casino debts were much worse than what he stole. He was desperate." I sat with that information for a long time. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it explained it. Addiction makes people do terrible things to those they love most. Over the following weeks, life settled into a new rhythm. Linda flew in to review the company books. My youngest, Michael, a teacher in Colorado, called more often. The family was restructuring itself around the David-shaped hole. 3 months later, I received the first payment from David, a check for $7,100 with a note. This is everything I could manage this month. I'm working 2 jobs now. Jennifer is too. We're in counseling. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I deposited the check and donated the amount to Margaret's favorite charity in David's name. I'd do the same with every payment. The money had never been about the money. On what would have been Margaret's 67th birthday, I visited her grave with flowers and the good news that Linda was taking over as Henderson Construction's new COO. As I arranged the roses on her headstone, a familiar voice spoke behind me. "Hi, Dad." I turned to see David, looking thinner but clearer-eyed than he had in years. He held a small bouquet of daisies, Margaret's favorites. "David, I know I'm probably not welcome. It's Mom's birthday. I needed to tell her I'm sorry." I stepped aside. "She's listening." We stood together in silence as David placed his flowers next to mine. Finally, he spoke. 90 days sober. Jennifer and I are in counseling. Real counseling, not just financial. I'm working at Sullivan Electric during the day and teaching night classes at the community college. Jennifer's working at the hospital again. He paused. We sold the house. We're renting a 2-bedroom apartment near the kids' new school. Public school. They're adjusting. That's good, David. I understand things will never be the same between us, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to become someone you and Mom could be proud of again. Someone I can be proud of. I looked at my son, really looked at him for the first time in months. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by work boots and jeans. The Rolex had been replaced by a simple Timex. But more than that, the desperate, grasping energy that had consumed him was fading. "Your mother always believed in second chances," I said finally. "She'd be proud that you're taking yours." David's eyes filled with tears. "I miss her so much. I think losing her broke something in me, and instead of grieving, I just grabbed for anything that made me feel in control." "Grief makes us do strange things," I agreed, "but it's what we do after that defines us." We stood together for another few minutes before David turned to go. At the cemetery gate, he looked back. "Dad, thank you for not pressing charges, for giving me a chance to make this right. Don't thank me. Thank your mother. It's what she would have wanted." As I watched him drive away in his old pickup truck, the same kind I'd started Henderson Construction with, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. That evening, I sat in my kitchen with my coffee, watching the sunset through Margaret's maple tree. The empty safe still sat on my desk in the office, a reminder of broken trust. But tomorrow, I decided, I'd put it back in the closet. Empty or full, it had served its purpose. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Dad, the numbers look great. Mom would be so proud of what you built. Can't wait to help it grow. Love you." Then one from Michael. "Thinking of you today. Mom's birthday was always special. Give her my love." And finally, unexpectedly, one from David. "Thank you for today. I won't let you down again." I smiled and typed back, "One day at a time." Because that's what Margaret would have said. That's what family does. We break, we heal, we forgive, carefully and slowly, and we rebuild. The foundation might be cracked, but if it was built right the first time, it can bear the weight again. I raised my coffee mug to the empty chair beside me. Happy birthday, my love. We're all finding our way home. The cardinal appeared again, settling on the branch closest to the window. It chirped once, tilted its head at me, then flew away into the golden evening sky. Tomorrow would be another day, another chance, another cup of coffee at 5:47 a.m. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt something besides betrayal and loss. I felt like a father again. If you enjoyed this story of family, forgiveness, and second chances, please like and subscribe. In our next video, I'll share how a grandmother's will revealed 30 years of family secrets. Until then, remember, sometimes the empty spaces teach us the most about what really matters.